the next story we have is about another study that's been done, that youth with autism see a sharp decline in physical activity between the ages of 9 and 13 compared with neurotypical kids.
Yeah. And I don't know about you. You know how I always say on the show, sometimes they'll bring up research and I go, well, that's a big duh.
Right.
Like, I think we could have guessed this, but I do appreciate now, after all these years, what this kind of research amounts to, like how it helps to change the world. Because you can say to a parent, listen, we've looked at a lot of kids on the autism spectrum, and we see that, if you do early intervention and then you get to a certain age and your kid is going to become sedentary because they're going to get really drawn into video games. So you really got to be mindful between this age and get them moving and, let them play their video games, but every once in a while take a break and like really program it in, because it's going to help them with anxiety. It's going to help them with self-regulation, and it's going to help them to, build core strength, which leads to all these other things, right? We can say that to parents all the time, but, it's a little bit more robust, I think, if that's the right word to use, when we hear, a study has shown that, yes, across the board, these kids get less, and that this is part of what separates them in these ages of development, and we really have to stem the tide of it. I just think it adds some more credence to it. What do you think?
Yes. It adds more credence, and they're saying, they're kind of pinpointing that it's between the ages of 9 and 13. So we know when to kind of be aware that that's when the level of activity starts to drop. And compared to neurotypical kids, they did far less activity. So at 13, youth with autism reported only 1 or 2 days of moderate to vigorous physical activity, compared with 9 or more days with neurotypical kids. So that's quite a difference.
And help me if I'm wrong on this, because you're somebody, Nancy, who has always, you're an athlete. You've run marathons. You've been somebody who competitively jumped horses. I mean, you're an amazing horsewoman. I think you have had an understanding of your body and have always been big on exercising. You hike on a regular basis still. Right. And I know you have said to me that if you don't get an opportunity to move your body, that your life doesn't work as well.
No, it doesn't. It clears my brain. And I think for our kids on the spectrum, it's really important, because what it does is those endorphins that get released when you exercise, it's a really great way to beat stress. And let's face it, our kids have a lot of stress and anxiety.
Yeah. And I'm not somebody who's an athlete. I've had periods of time where I exercised. Was that Wyatt that just went by? I didn't see.
No, it was John, his aide.
Oh, hello, John. But I'm not somebody who's particularly good at that kind of stuff. And so, hi, John. We need to have you sign a release. But anyway, I have periods of time in my life where I'll get on an exercise kick and I'll be doing something like swimming or, dance aerobics I really love. And then I don't stick to it, but I have really seen in COVID that it's really forced me to hone in and look, and we put a treadmill in the living room, because if I don't get on that treadmill on a regular basis, my fibromyalgia acts up, my thinking becomes really circuitous. Mm-hmm. I have more anxiety, like free-floating anxiety. And I find if I just do even a small amount on the treadmill, like not crazy, I'm not running any marathons, but a small amount on the treadmill helps me to focus. I have seen that it helps everybody in my household, including my son. And I keep thinking about Temple Grandin saying that, she had to be on medication for anxiety for a lot of years, but then she discovered that if every day she did a burst of activity, not even like, exercise for a half an hour, but if there was like a 3-minute period of time where she got breathless, and she said, I do it in a hotel, I can do jumping jacks, I can do, squat thrusts, different things, but if a burst of activity to get me winded, that keeps her regulated. Mm-hmm. And when you think about all the hormonal changes that are going through a 9 to a 13-year-old's body, and I just think it really becomes important for us to recognize this research and make a concerted effort that between those ages to up the exercise level.
Yeah, and Shannon, they said that the decline continues through the teenage years. At 17 to 18, most adolescents with autism participated in 0 days of physical activity compared to 6 to 8 days among youth without autism. That's statistically a big difference. And it shows you that between the ages of 9 and 13, we first see that drop off. And that becomes a habit, unfortunately. Whereas if you exercise regularly, that becomes a habit.
And I'm sure, and this is maybe something we can ask, because we have people come on every month to talk about research, and maybe we'll put it in their hopper to talk about the research showing physical exercise and how that correlates to depression and anxiety, because I really feel like there is a correlation there. Hey, we're saying hi to Jordan, who's watching and finding this a helpful discussion. Jordan, we're so glad that you're here with us. I just wanted to say hello. And I didn't say hello to Nasser or Amanda, so we're saying hi to them as well.
Shannon,
reminding everybody you can write in the chat. Yes?
I also wondered on this particular study whether kids with autism don't take part in school athletics as much as neurotypical kids. And my hunch is that they don't.
Yeah, I think you're probably right, Nancy. And I was talking to somebody recently. I'm always reminded, we do our jargon of the day, Mondays and Thursdays here on the show, but I'm always reminded of the fact that I've gone to the dark side and I just throw jargon terms out and forget that and I was talking about APE the other day and I was like, APE this and APE this to somebody. And they were like, what are you talking about? And I said, oh, APE stands for Adaptive Physical Education. And, if your child has an IEP, you can request that they get an evaluation to see if they qualify for APE. And then another person was saying, oh, my child gets APE, but another person said, my child gets both APE and the regular phys ed. They do both of them. And I was like, oh, well, that's kind of cool. And then it became this conversation about, wait a second, there were people who were like, my child isn't participating at all. So it just reminds me how important it is, that we talk to our support groups and that we talk about what are we getting and what's appropriate, although it's going to be different for every individual. But our kids need to move. That's the bottom line. Our kids need to move and they need a lot of exercise. The more that they are physically moving their body, we know, for instance, that activities that cross the midline, so things like playing tennis, or a ping pong or something like that, or even just touching your toes with the opposite hand, that kids across the board, on the spectrum and not on the spectrum, test higher cognitively after doing crossing the midline activities. And if you want to know more about that, I encourage people to go to Pinterest. We have a board on Pinterest for Autism Live, and we have different categories. And one of them is just crossing the midline exercises. And they have games you can play with your kiddos to cross the midline. So all of this we know is connected mind, body, right? So the body's got to move.
And especially during this time when so many of our kids are virtual learning, it's important to build in physical activities in their schedule during the day.
Yes. Used to be that we would give our kids a break and let them have technology. Like, okay, you can have your phone or your iPad for 10 minutes because you're on a break, right? At least that was what we did. And now it's got to be the exact opposite. You've been on the computer for half an hour, 40 minutes, an hour. I hope not longer than that. Now, it's a break in the school thing. It's not the time to sit down and play on your phone or your iPad. It's time to get up and run, like let's play chase around the house. Put one kid in the laundry basket and have laundry basket races so that they blow their yayas out so that they can come back to the screen. You can have a break for technology, like way later, right before dinner or something. But you if you're doing distance learning, you got to take the breaks and make them physical. Do it with your kids. Let's all get in better shape.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so I'm glad that we talked about. Thanks for watching Autism Live. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. See you next time. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.
To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.